what are the expected percentages. Is it good? Is it bad? And so we're going to look at a few of those today. We won't be looking at the entire DIR, just the main ones that will help you decide what you need to clean up. And again, next Friday, we'll be working on specifically how to clean up that last bit data. So without further ado, I'm trying not to see how many people are here. So we're going to look at the items on the AEBG DIR, the new one, and compare it with statewide results that we have from years of monitoring. And then also in that handout that I posted, we'll be talking about ways to correct some of these issues for next year and improve these results. And now is an excellent time to start making notes on how you need to change how you collect the data, since you'll have to start all over again very soon. Okay, so hopefully you've got your DIR. If not, we can look at this little screenshot that I've got here. Remember, everybody that's in AEBG needs to be reported here. And this will tell you, this little top summary information will tell you how many are in your database. This DIR is a snapshot of what's in your database. It doesn't tell you everything, but it gives you an idea of what's there. So for Rolling Hills, our fake database, we have 237 students in our database. We have one student who is not assigned to one of the 7 AEBG programs. So we know that we've got to go in and find that student and make sure they get assigned. And because it's fake data, this ends up being a lot of zeros just because we don't have our data dirty enough. But then again, how many students do you have enrolled in AEBG? 236. Again, just trying to find that one person, and I'll show you how to do that. And really at that point, you're looking at what you think should be there and what is showing there. So if you go to your first item in your DIR, it's missing birth date. Remember that this item is required and it should always be low, especially by the end of the fourth quarter, because you've had a chance to go back and find that person and get their birth date. So the California state average of missing birth date is 1.4%. If you have anything particularly higher than that, that's an item that you need to go looking for right now for your end of the year data, and really keep in mind for next year what you need to start collecting, or how you can improve that collection. It says, has a distinction been made for students who are only WIOA learners? Not on this report. This is your AEBG report. If you want to see your WIOA learners, you have to run the NRS DIR. So this is a big one for agencies, less than 12 hours of instruction. Remember that in California, you need to report your student as soon as they have 1 hour. But we do track how many of your students leave before they hit that 12-hour mark. And the 12-hour mark is a federal rule for reporting students. But in California, it's overridden with the, as soon as they step in that classroom, they're counted for hours of instruction. So keeping in mind how your agency inputs attendance into TOPS Pro is going to be very important. If you've ever had the experience of handing a DIR over to an administrator who doesn't know that you turn in attendance on, or import attendance on Fridays, but they want to see a report on Tuesday, and they see 400 and some odd students with less than 12 hours, especially at the beginning of the year, you have to make sure that they understand too that, wait, we have a process in our office of just downloading attendance at the end of every week. So you have to keep all of these things in mind. Did you just have a big enrollment week? Then these numbers are going to be very high. But as you get down through the quarter, through the semester, those numbers are going to go down. They're going to spike every time that you do an enrollment period. but as you go along, it will go down. If you're using e-tests, there can be an issue with these students. They come in, they go to orientation, they take a pre-test, but they've never attended class. Then you're going to have high numbers here. And if you come to some more of our trainings, we'll tell you how you can kind of work with that. We don't want you to delete any records for anything, for any reason, any person. And these numbers, having high numbers here, isn't held against you anyway. Nobody's going to take money away or anything. It may trigger a phone call to find out what's what, but other than that, nobody's going to come in and put the handcuffs on. So those 12 hours are broken down into 0 or empty hours of instruction, and those who have total hours between 1 and 11 hours. And so 0 or empty hours are the ones that you're not going to do update records for. 1 to 11 hours, you can do an update record for them if they've left your program. You don't necessarily have to, but it is easier to track if you just do one for everybody who's left your program. Once they hit 12 or more hours, you absolutely have to do an update record for them. So you have to do update records for everybody, but if they don't have 12 hours of instruction, at the end, by the end of the fiscal year, you don't have to do an update record. They are going to show here 0 or empty hours, you don't have to, or the 1 to 11 hours, you don't have to. I highly recommend doing an update record for everybody, though. No highest year of school or degree earned needs to be put in there, and it's broken down by no highest year of school, no highest degree earned, and that means that it's not marked. No gender, no race and ethnicity, and or race and ethnicity, and I think I've got some slides on that. Labor force status is required. Everybody that walks through your door has a labor force status. Everybody. They might not be working, but that's a labor force status. And it's broken down into employed, employed with notice, unemployed, or not in labor force. And for the most part, that's going to be maybe stay-at-home moms and are people that are in local jails. Joanne will get to that, and probably more on the next week's training. She's asking, at a minimum, what information is required on the update record for students over 12 hours, and it's listed on the AEBG website. You need to have the program, the date of the update, and whether the student is staying in the program, and any of their learner outcomes. That's where you record anything that the student has achieved that might not show on a pre and a post test. Liz, maybe email me on which of the third-party import files contain the update record data fields. And then I can handle that later this afternoon. So, how can we improve your data? I hope everybody knows what their agency's intake process is and that you've got it printed out somewhere, and everybody knows what their role is and what they're in charge of. So everybody, your front office staff, your teachers all know what the process is for getting this information. You should have it so that the teachers don't accept any students in their classroom unless they come with a registration form or some kind of note that the student has been registered. If you're using registration forms for them and you've included entry record information for them, who checks for completeness before that student leaves and goes to class? That all of the boxes are marked. Sometimes you have to give that support staff permission to stop the student and say, no, I need this information, or to be able to go to the teacher and say, can you help me with this information? So make sure there's a process for double checking those records. So much easier to collect when that student's standing right in front of you. Have teachers and support staff gather the information from the students. Your teachers, if you approach it well as a team effort, they're usually more than happy to get that information for you. And here I realized I was going to have a discussion. We don't really have it, but we've got the chat screen. So anybody have a process or procedure that works really well? And thank you, Jean, that you want to share with everybody else. And she's got the office staff goes over it with the student at registration, and it's re-looked at orientation. Great. So you've got a couple of times that you can get the student, you can tap the student for that information. Anybody else have a really good process? At the agency I worked at, we ended up just putting a check mark in the upper right-hand corner of the registration form. So when the teacher received their copy from the student as the student walked in, they knew from that checkbox that everything was complete on the registration form and pre-testing had already happened. No check mark, the student was sent back to the office. Penny, she says, as a teacher, I wish I had this level of explanation of why that form was so important. In order to be able to get those students on those federal tables and on the state reporting so we can continue to get that funding, this is vital. And so, Penny, maybe what you'd want to do is, since that's been your experience, is make sure to have a training with your teachers or at orientation before and go over why this is important. And the learners too. She says that teachers often meet resistance from learners, but remind them that this is part of participating in these courses. All right. But yes, we've all met that resistance. So the less than 12 hours for the state of California, the typical has been, what did I type up there? 23, it should be, oh, I'm sorry, quarter two. It should be, I think, 22.16%. 22.16%. So you can see that our fake little rolling hills is not doing too badly. That's just fine. These breakdowns have occurred just in the last couple of years, so we don't really have the data for them. But 22.16, I got carried away with my decimals. Now, some agencies have highly transient students, and specifically those in the Fresno area, the Monterey area, where they have students who are the farm workers moving. So that number is going to be high, but you know that those students are moving with those with the jobs. So thanks, Blair. And but if your agency does not have that kind of student, you have most of your students just stay for fewer than 12 hours or maybe even fewer than 20 hours, you need to ask the question, why? Why are your students leaving? I did get from, oh, thanks, Dana. And Corona Norco, thank you. So you want to find out why students aren't staying longer in your program. I had an administrator tell me once, well, that's just how the students are. But the problem was that she was offering classes during the day, Monday through Friday, before 5 o'clock. And her students worked in the big logging industry, and so the students were working. No classes on Saturday were offered, no classes at night were offered, and no classes were offered at the logging office, which you can do too. So it really comes down to finding out, surveying those students. You can survey the students that are in the classroom. They'll know why students left. And it's really good information to improve your agency numbers. and serving the students, right? You don't just offer classes with them. Anyway. So comparing 2A and with 2B, you can see that a lot of these people, these 51 students probably came in orientation, took a test, maybe because their worker told them to, but they had no intention of attending classes. And that's sadly expected. But again, trying to go over those students, after those students, and find out how we can get them to stay. So again, do you have a migrant worker population? Survey your students attending your agency and ask them why they don't stay. They actually have really good information. Did their work conflict with the class times that were offered? Were there transportation difficulties and child care issues? And then is it a problem in a specific program area, or is it a problem with a specific class? Maybe that GED class needs to be held at night rather than in the morning. What can you do to affect change in that? So Dana, let me see real quick. Some of our classes are non-attendant, such as subjects in a study lab. Study lab itself has attendance. Does this affect? No, because if your ABE class is in a study lab, those hours are counted, and you need to input those hours into your TOPS enterprise database. Jean, if we are including our students in other program and they attend class, is 3 hours long assessment testing and 12 hours is less. No, if the students, so Jean's talking about creating a classroom or a class in your database for students who don't attend. They maybe came in and took a test, but they've never enrolled in class, never attended class. If a student has an hour or any portion of an hour, you cannot do that to them. They need to be reported. So the key demographic data that we looked at the very beginning, things that are very important: no highest year of school or degree earned. Very rarely do we see students with no years of school, none, zero, in their country or here. So 5.2% is the California state average for that. That Rolling Hills has, so we break it down to no highest year of school, 14.3. That's still more than twice what the California state average is. So Rolling Hills staff have to get a little bit busy about gathering that data from the student. No highest degree earned, and the California state average, 8.3%. So Rolling Hills is going gangbusters, right? They've gotten that data from their students. And then learners who marked degree or diploma earned but no years of schooling. You got to have one in order to have the other. And 2.6 is the California state average for that one. And I believe that 3D is a relatively new one, but again, the percentage is still quite low. Degree earned marked is outside of the US, but still not highest year of school. Again, if they have a degree, they have to have gone to school, and we just need to record that. Fans, I'm not seeing. Oh, done. It's possible. Susan says that her AEBG DIR does not show 3C or 3D. I really thought I quadruple checked these. And it's possible I didn't, but and God knows if they changed the DIR this morning. I swear. But if not, this applies to your NRS DIR. All right, so it's still good information to have. If it's not on your AEBG DIR, then a few less things to worry about, but still good information to know. Labor force status. Tell me that your labor force status is on your AEBG DIR. A yes from somebody. Susan? Yes, agree. Okay, good. All right, so we've got your total is the first item. This is the good number. This is the total number of students that you've got their data on their labor force status. And then where they fall in all of that, how many of those are employed with notice, unemployed, or not in the labor force. Does everybody understand employed with notice? These will be people that have been notified that they're going to be laid off in 3 months. And Jay always likes to use the example of being in the Navy and knowing that you're out in just a couple of months. That is employed with notice. But it's the 6E that you want to take note of. How many are missing their labor force status? So we've still got 101 that are missing the labor force status. It's almost half of our students at Rolling Hills are missing that information. California state average is 13.9%, and 42 not so good. So I'm hoping the stating the California state averages are helping when you're looking at your data. All right, so then we get down to the fun ones. No pretest. Remember, we've got to pretest and post-test all of our students. You don't have to use CASAS. You can use one of the other federally approved assessments. Go to the AEBG website and it gives you all the information. But you do have to monitor their growth. Okay, so the state average for no pretest is 19.9%. Still not great. But that's the typical number of students who get through the program with that pretest. So how to improve your agency's data? Test all students, all ESL, all ABE, all ASE, no exceptions. There is one minor exception, but I swear every time I bring it up, agencies go back, or the staff goes back, participants go back and say, oh, we don't have to test those students. No, 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 no. Just think this. All ESL, all ABE, all ASE. Test before you send them to class. Don't wait for them to have 12 hours to test. You want to test them raw. You want the lowest score so that any gains that they make while they're in confusion. Sandy, I'll get to you in just a sec. So, sorry, lost my train of thought. Don't wait 12 hours to send those students into class and to test those students. Don't wait a couple of weeks until you have enough students to test. I've never understood that one. And then check at the end of every week. Have everybody that you've registered and gone to class, have they all tested? If not, go and find them. Don't wait several weeks. Do you have different staff who register students from those who test students? Make sure that they're in communication so they know. Have staff check mark students' registration to indicate that the student has indeed been tested. Train the teachers to look for that check mark if you want to use that suggestion that I've got. If you've got outreach classes. Right, thank you, Amy. You're not required to test CTE students, just ESL, ABE, ASE. If you have teachers at outreach sites that have to do the registration and testing themselves, which is not a perfect plan, having been on the receiving end of that one. If you can come up with a way to have an instructional assistant come out and help the teacher, make sure that the teacher doesn't register people every single night of her class or his class. Have them designate a single night to that. If somebody comes in and wants to register, you have little prep notes that say, welcome to the class, please come back on Thursday. You just can't serve everybody at every single moment and expect the teacher to be able to do quality teaching at the same time. So these are good things to be discussing with your teachers. Get their input on what will work. Okay, so is there any to include the other program? I'm confused. What about the state average based on, are the state averages based on, yeah, because, I mean, this is the first year that we're getting data back that we can use in TE. So yes, I'm using California state averages for WIOA. So, okay, Sandy, so maybe we need to talk after the training, and I can look at it too. Tom Chan, what about students in our citizenship prep class? That's an ESL class. So yes, you want to test everybody. And Tom, you might drop me an email too so I can double check something for you. All right, no post-test. This is where California has a real problem. It's not just California, all the other states have a problem with this too. So sadly, the California state average is about 51%. For the fourth quarter, it actually goes up a little. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't change that one. So it's for quarter four, it's actually 56% essentially, which is not good. Not good. So Jay says that the California statewide persister rate, so these are students with a pre and a post test, in 2013-14 was 71%. So the ideal percentage for this area of no post test should be under 30%. If we can get this under 30%, that would be great. But you need to be watching your data, watching your students when they leave. Make sure that the students know that if they have to leave the program early, please come to you so that they can get the final test done so that you can claim them on your report. So they're included in your full report there. And I think Kimberly's going to ask a question. Yes? No? Maybe she's changed her mind. This is one of the most difficult things to do. The agencies that do the best with post-testing, they set up a calendar for post-testing at the end of every at the beginning of every fiscal year. Teacher orientation, so the teachers get the calendar for the year of when testing is going to happen, and you maybe pick a week after substantial hours of instruction, and that's going to be your testing week for your agency, and just get it all done at the same time. So you're not just picking and choosing, oh, maybe it's time to do this class, we'll do that class. Much better if it's fully organized and everybody's on the same page with this testing calendar. Again, after so many years at Sacramento City Unified School District, what worked for our district was, or I shouldn't say district, for our school at the district, our agency at the district was post-testing at the before a holiday break. Post-testing and frankly update records before every holiday break. And while it made it a short turnaround time between Thanksgiving and winter holiday break, that's when we caught up anybody that we had missed before Thanksgiving. And then the next time you test is at spring break or just before spring break. Students typically leave after a long break. That's when you notice that they don't come back and, oh, you know, we had Christmas break and they're all gone, they're not coming back. So test them before they go. Test them before they go. Penny, yeah, I see her.
Daryl,
yeah.
Just a really quick question. Could you explain one more time if we include other programs when we are completing this? There's still some confusion in the field.
Yes. Your attendance and the demographics all have to be completed on all of your programs for AEBG. Testing is only done for ESL, ABE, ASE.
Thank you.
Is that was the question? And Penny wrote, when will CASAS have the new averages for these items? Well, considering you haven't turned in your data yet. Maybe by October, I hope. I'm kind of last on the list of getting all that information, by the way. But yeah. So, and then Janet says this percentage is based on students who have a pretest, not enrollment as a whole, correct? Right. This has to do just with the students that are ABE, ASE, ESL. It doesn't include any of your CTE people or anything like that. That's okay. Understood. It takes time. Yeah, it's going to take a while to get that data, but I'll be watching for it because it will be interesting to see. I have a feeling that this year's data is, I mean, because we all got started so late, we got the information late of what we were supposed to be collecting and all of that, and not going to be pretty. But just think how much better it's going to be next year when you turn in your data. Okay. How are we doing on time? We're doing great on time. Okay, so again, how do you improve your agency's data for next year? I mean, this year there's unless your classes are still, no, even if your classes are going on, it's not going to count, right? These are all students have been post-tested by June 30th to qualify for that fiscal year. So again, we're at the point of planning for next year. So how to improve the agency's data? Create a post-testing calendar for your agency. Make sure that your staff and students are aware of the calendar. Who follows up on students who are absent on testing days? What happens, or what's the procedure for testing these students? And I had a staff member who would give me would create a list of students who were absent on testing day, but the list remained on her desk. So there has to be the steps. You have to give that list to me before the week is out, so we can go and grab those students and get them tested. And practice yields perfection, or at least cleaner data. Yes, it does. Thanks, Benny. Okay, so Jason from North Orange, if you have a high proportion of students in CTE, I don't know what SASS is, assisting school-age students, I guess, DSS, et cetera, wouldn't increase the percentage of students without a test if you select all. No, but the program knows that it's only going to count those students who qualify, who are required to have a test for the day for that. It's not going to count those CTE students. Trust the DIR. Trust the DIR. If you think that it's really screwy and the numbers don't make sense, call tech support. Things happen. A line of code gets a little screwed up along the way. You just never know. All right. So no primary goal, no secondary goal. These aren't required. They're not required for WIOA either and haven't been for several years. However, we encourage agencies to gather the information from the student. What is their reason for being at your agency? What's their primary goal? What's their secondary goal? And we also ask that you collect it of what they can accomplish within that year. So if you've got somebody coming in who wants their GED, but their last year of school was 8th grade, okay, it's going to be improving skills. Their secondary goal could be get their GED. But you want their input. They want you to know why they're there. So it really does help when you're working with your program to check these goals and see, are you providing what the students need, or is there another neighboring agency that can provide what that student needs more than you, and having them go there. This is a relatively new one. Learners with a pre and a post pair, but they've had fewer than 40 hours of instruction. This is just kind of a monitoring thing. When the feds came in and said, no, you can't test people at 12 hours. You can't test people at 15 hours. You have to wait at least 40 hours. Again, not the starting gun for all your testing, Um, uh, but because you're supposed to wait 70 to 100 hours, NRS says that you go with the test publisher guidelines, and CASAS research shows that 70 to 100 hours of class time will show that the students have gains on their testing. Okay, so 10% is the threshold that we've been using because agencies have asked what's okay. The California state average has been fairly low, but it goes up and down. But again, if you've got 28% of your students that post-tested before 40 hours, that better be addressed. People better know why. Why? And then trying to figure out a way to get them to stay a little bit longer in your program. Okay, Ryan, do you have any insight to the necessity of pre- and post-testing CTE students for, is there a cause system for them? Not off the top of my head, I don't. Ryan, you probably have to email me so I can do a little research in that. Okay, and let's see, formally 10%. So watch those. Remember, you want students to have more than 40 hours before you post-test. But there are ways that you can get around it, right? And I'm getting confused because I was just talking to another group, and so I'm not too sure I hadn't said this already to you, that if the students, let's take GED as an example. They're enrolled in ASE, and they want to get their GED. They're very close. They just need a little refresher. And they typically don't stay more than 20 hours in your program, but you still need a pre and a post for them. What you can do is offer a distance learning component that they can do on top of their class. I mean, our GED class was always either 1 day a week in the evening or 2 days a week in the evening, never of great intensity. So the students had plenty of time to do a distance learning component of some time from home. So we offered them at Sacramento 20 hours of class time, 20 hours of distance learning happening concurrently, so it was still only 20 hours of their time. And then if we got a post-test from them, if they came in and did a post-test with us before they left, we gave them a discount coupon for the GED test. And or we'd give them a $5 or $10 card to Target or something like that. You have to be creative. Apologies if you already did this, but at the end of the presentation, can you please show us how to interpret the DIR? So tell us what's missing data and what is wrong with the data, the difference between null and zero. There actually is no difference between null or zero. If we have time, Kristen, I can. We're going to be dealing with that next week in depth, though, on our Friday training. And I know everybody's getting nervous. How did you aware distance learning hours through MIS? Oh, award hours. You just go in and mark the hours within the student record. Don't you keep track, Corona Norco, on your distance learning hours on your third-party attendance system or whatever you use? Connie's coming to my aid. Thank you, Connie. Oh, distance learning hours. Yeah, if it's AEB, if it's ABE, ASE, or ESL distance learning, you can claim those hours. You should be recording those hours. Thank you, Connie. And I saw Tom was piping in there too. Thanks, Tom. My buddies. Okay. You should have a local assessment policy, whether you're using, it's not just CASAS testing, but any type, whatever testing system you're using, you should have a local assessment policy that delineates exactly what happens from when a student walks in your door to when they leave your program. What forms are filled out, what testing happens, when testing happens, and everybody's role within that. There is a template that you can use, so you don't have to create it from scratch on the CASAS website. And you don't have to use it if you're using just CASAS tests. You can use it with whatever testing you're using. And then you make sure to share that local assessment policy with all of your staff. Oh, I guess we are going to have time to do some stuff. So, again, if you need any help, aebg@casas.org or tech support at casas.org. And next Friday, we're going to be, or next Wednesday, Laurel is going to be here. And I know, and all of you know him, he's going to be talking about importing data into TE, so that those of you who had questions about which files go in, he'll be able to answer that, and adding and editing data within TOPS Enterprise. And then a DIR cleanup for next week. I know that doesn't give you a lot of time, I'm sorry. I was given Friday. All right. So any other questions that, Patty, what are the resources on the AEBG website for distance learning programs? I have no idea, Amy. I really don't. And then Tom wrote, distance learning hours are part of a formal distance learning program with its requirements or only out of class work assigned by the teacher. No, out of class work is homework. It has to be a formal distance learning program. But it wouldn't hurt to ask Neil. Any questions? Kristen, again, we talked about that summary report at the top of the DIR, and that those items need to be filled. Oops, sorry, let me go back. Right, all of your students in your AEBG program should show here. And then any of these will tell you that the student isn't where they're supposed to be. And it's these items that are vital. We know the data isn't going to be perfect this year. We know that you haven't had a lot of time to gather it, and I mean, the students have been in classes for weeks before we found out what exactly needed to be collected. We're asking that you do the best you can. And again, if you need help, call me. I'll be back at my desk. Well, give me an hour. But I'll be back at my desk this afternoon. Drop me an email. We can set up some time next week to meet if you like. And I can call you and take care of your individual things. So what's the best way to find student not enrolled in the 7 AEBG programs? Well, if you have, to identify the ones that aren't in, well, you've got your list of people who are in on your DIR, and hopefully you have some other kind of registration list to make sure that everybody's in there. Because the database can't tell you who's not in there. You have to be careful of having floaters in your database too. Remember, they have to be assigned a class and a program, and they have to have that demographic information, the stuff that's right here. This is the parent record for the student. If you don't have this information in, but you've got a test in the system, it's going to be floating. It will land once you get this information in. So Daryl's putting in the next trainings. And Kristen, we still have many items that are at 0% and 100%. Makes me think that you've got one person in your database. Because they're either showing up or they're not showing up on these different items. So Kristen, I'd suggest that drop me an email. Let's set up some time to meet next week. Okay? And we can work through that with you. If classes are coded properly, isn't the program assignment automatic? Yes, Dana. Yeah. Any other questions while we're here? Daryl, did we want to address some questions from Wednesday? Did we have questions that we wanted to address, or are we waiting on those? Which is fine too.
Yeah, we're still waiting on those. I think
Okay,
that you
no
addressed
problem.
all of the ones that we had come in, but we are double checking that.
Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Judith Flores, extension? No, there is no extension. August 1st is the due date. With WIOA in previous years, there was a kind of a secret, non-secret month that you could extend your due date, but that is gone this year. There were absolutely no extensions on WIOA 2. I assume that there will be no extensions on AEBG. And Elaine, we are not expected to worry about this data since staff is gone. Right, you do the best you can. Next year it'll be perfect. This year, we do the best we can. So again, if you want to drop me an email, as the phone starts ringing as soon as I walk into the house, and yeah, I'm better at email than phone, by the way. Just drop me an email and say, can we set up a meeting next week? Yeah. So if there aren't any other questions, I hope this data helped. I hope it helps you decide whether your data is not necessarily good or bad, but where it is in relation to what we expect. And that should help you determine whether you need to work on some data at the last minute or not, or if you can. Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and end the meeting then. Thank you everybody for coming. Again, don't hesitate to contact me if you need any help. That's what I'm here for.
Thank you, Patty. And I just want to give some final information to everybody. If you have further questions, as we've been mentioning over the course of this webinar, please feel free to email Patty. I've also put up the email address for the Technical Assistance Project website, so tap at aebg.org, and I'll put that in. We also have a new 800 number, actually 888 number, so 1-888-TAP AEBG is our new phone number for technical assistance that you may need, and that would translate to 1-888-827-2324. And then, of course, there's also on the aebg.org website the Request Support button in the upper right-hand corner that you can click on, and you will find quite a bit of resources on the AEBG website to be able to determine a lot of your own information and answers for yourself. But feel free to reach out to us through any of those means. And then as as Patty mentioned, we have upcoming webinars, July 26th, so this upcoming Wednesday from 12 to 1:30. We will be doing TOPS Pro Enterprise Basics, third-party import data exchange. And then on Friday, July 28th, from 12 to 1 p.m., we have DIR cleanup. So a follow-up, as Patty was mentioning, to what we had discussed today. So I will put all of these in the chat section so you folks can cut and paste them. Thank you very much for listening. And if there are any further questions or anything that you need, please feel free to put it in the chat box right now, and we will make sure that we get that information to you. So without further ado, I will put in those resources, and thank you very much.